A highlight for people when they come and visit Moon's Rare Books is something we call the Backroom Show and Tell. We do a show and tell where we pull out the most spectacular treasures here in the vaults, and we do a show and tell. We use it as a fundraiser to provide funds for Generations Humanitarian. We feed over 1,200 kids a day. And recently we had Tom Ayling here, and we did a show and tell. And I want to show you what it's like if you're able to visit Moon's Rare Books and see what it's like to see treasures in the backroom vaults. What you're about to see is an actual show and tell, wasn't pre-scripted or anything, where people ask questions. We showed a lot of these items, and both Tom and I tell you the background on several really cool items. Hope you enjoy. Welcome everybody. My name is Reid Moon, and we have a special guest, Tom Ayling, my UK counterpart. He does what I do over there, and hopefully this is a very fun, informative show and tell event over the next hour and a half, and we have some fun stories to tell you. Out of curiosity, how many of you have been to one of the backroom events? Okay, don't give away any surprises, but this will be a show and tell event. Start thinking about this. In this back room, we have something that ties to everything that's happened in the history of the world in the past 600 years. With no more than 1 degree of separation. We don't pretend to have everything, but we have something that ties to everything. I'm going to give you an example. Now we're going to start out showing you a few fun items, and then you get to raise your hand. This, we don't know where it's going to go. It depends on your area of interest. You can name a person, place, event. You can't name an item. You can't say, show me the Declaration of Independence. You can say Declaration of Independence, okay? And I can show you something within 1 degree, okay? Now, for example, I'm going to tell you how a degree of separation works. If you said American Civil War, I could show you something American Civil War, but if I didn't, I could show you my 1 degree of separation. I could do Abraham Lincoln. Or I could show you a book printed between 1861 and 1865, which means technically I could show you, which I happen to have right here, Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, printed in 1862, the second year of the Civil War. That is a 1 degree of separation. So it may not be what you're looking for, but it ties to the Civil War. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. And just to show you how this goes, I'm going to start out with one, and then Tom and I are going to tag team, go back and forth. You get to hear from both of us. And then once he starts talking, you go, ooh, we prefer that British voice over your... Go ahead and introduce yourself, Tom, so they can be wowed by your voice and knowledge.
Oh dear, what a build-up.
Ooh, that British voice.
How embarrassing. Good evening. So nice to see you. Well, thanks so much for coming. As we said, I'm an antiquarian bookseller based just outside of Oxford in the UK. So I have a slightly smaller bookshop than Reid does. But yeah, I've been in the book business for over a decade. It's the only job I'm good for, and thankfully the only job I've ever had. So it's great to be here to share some of the secrets and treasures of the back room with you.
Okay, great. Okay, let's go on an imaginary trip back to January of 1776. If we go back to January of 1776, and then we do a little informal poll, and we ask you, who do you want? Who are you backing? Are you backing George Washington or King George? Now, Tom would do King George, and I would do George Washington, but it was a third. A third were backing King George, a third were backing George Washington, a third were on the fence, until a guy came along and he wrote a little pamphlet that got people off the fence. That man's name was Thomas Paine. He wrote a pamphlet called Common Sense in Philadelphia on 3rd Street. They printed like about 500 copies and they sold out immediately. Printed another 500, then 1,000, and then the third printing, and then Thomas Paine said, I would like some of the proceeds to buy mittens for the soldiers. Well, Robert Bell said, oh, not just yet, you know. He was withholding from him. And Thomas Paine said, okay, I have no patience.
I can see people want it. Let's just lower the price from 2 shillings to 1 shilling, and anybody can print it. And so from Charleston to Boston, New York, they started printing it. Now there's only 2 million people in the Americas. They printed 500,000 copies. 1 copy for every 4 people. To this day, nothing has been printed in America that has had a higher saturation. Today, you would have to print 80 million of something to have the same saturation. So, and if you remember a modern example, just think Harry Potter. Harry Potter would maybe come close to that, but that was over 10 years. Condense that into 6 months. I mean, for 10 years, all you heard was Harry Potter. Can you imagine if you condensed all of the Harry Potter mania into 6 months instead of 10 years? Just, okay, that's what was in Thomas Paine's Common Sense. The excitement. Well, from a collecting standpoint, everybody, the most valuable would be the first printing. There are only 5 surviving copies, and there's like Harvard, Yale, Library of Congress, British Museum or British Library, and Provo, Utah. Wow. We have one of the 5 surviving copies of Thomas Paine's Common Sense. And even George Washington said that changed the course of early American history. They would have a falling out later, but nonetheless, that is a very important pamphlet printed in early American history. So, okay, that's one item. Now, turning the time over to Tom. Tom, tell us what you've got.
I was going to show you literally the first book that I saw when I walked into Reid's shop. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Yeah. So I came off a long flight, so I'm not really sure what day it is or time it is. But this was the first thing that I saw when I came into Reid's shop yesterday. It was lying in the illuminated cabinet at the front of the shop, and I felt like he put it there to taunt me. So I'd love to show you it. Does anyone want to just shout out and guess what date this book's from, just looking at the outside of it? Don't be shy. 1700s, it's close. This is from the 17th century, so it was printed in 1659. You can see the title page here. Wow. And this is it's a dictionary. It's a very handy dictionary. Everyone should have one on their desk because it's Anglo-Saxon into Latin and then into English. It's an incredibly important book, so you can have a look through and you can see it gives you the Anglo-Saxon, then it gives you the Latin, and then it gives you the English. So in the entry for abbot, it would say abba in Anglo-Saxon, abbas in Latin, and then an abbot in English. But this book was set there to taunt me, not because I'm a geeky linguist, although I'm also that, but because it was owned by someone very significant. And if we open it up to the front end paper, it's got the ownership inscription of someone who was a young academic just back from the trenches in the First World War. And his name, as you can see here, was JRR Tolkien. Oh, wow. And any book owned by Tolkien is incredibly cool just for containing his signature. And the fact that I'm holding it now as he once would have and flicking through the pages as he once would have is a pretty special feeling. But we know that he didn't just own this book to own a cool, rare book to have on your shelves to show off to students and make them feel inferior. He actually used this book because if we start reading some of the entries, they sound very familiar to us. So if we go here under B, there's an entry here which says Baelrog. And Baelrog, or rogus in Latin, is a great fire wherein dead bodies were burned, which is where he came up with Balrog in The Lord of the Rings. And we can go to the back of the book here, and we have an entry here for Theoden. And Theoden is Dominus Princeps Rex or Rector in Latin, a lord, a prince, a ruler, a king. We can go to S, and there's an entry for Saruman, or Saruman as we know him, which in Anglo-Saxon means a cunning man. And this book is where Tolkien found the words for basically everything related to Rohan and the Rohirrim in Middle-earth. All comes from words he found in this book. So it's something I'm very, very fond of. And as I was telling Reid earlier, I desperately wanted to buy it about 2 months before Reid picked it up, but couldn't afford to. And now I got to be reminded of it as soon as I walked into his shop. So thank you for that, Reid.
Okay. Now, we don't just have books here. We have artifacts, documents. This is an artifact that goes back. I'm sticking with early American history. In fact, George Washington, okay? George and Martha Washington had no children of their own, but Martha was previously married, had children, so they had nieces and nephews. One of the nieces was named Jane. Jane wanted a gift from Uncle George to kind of commemorate the inauguration. I have that gift from George Washington right here. You say, what could that possibly be? Well, first of all, how do we know it is? I will open it up. On one side, you will see a white paper, which is a notarized affidavit with an embossed seal from over a century ago saying, this has been passed down from great-grandma Jane, and it's signed by the members of the Washington family. And on the other side, you will see what George Washington gifted to his niece, Jane. What did he gift? Some of his hair. That is Washington's hair right there. He never wore a wig. That is his silver gray hair right there with a notarized affidavit right there. Pre-photography, hair was a big deal. Didn't see that coming, did you? Washington came to a book presentation and I just showed you the DNA of George Washington.
I actually wasn't planning to talk about this, but I just saw it out the corner of my eye. So I'm not gonna reach over far and grab it, don't worry. But I've just given it away, but for my money, the most beautiful paragraph written in the entire 19th century wasn't written in a work of fiction. It's not in Les Miserables. It's not written by Dickens or Jane Austen or one of the Bronte sisters. It was written by a scientist. And it's the last sentence in the book I'm holding here, which is Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species. And this is a copy of the second printing, which was published 3 months after the first printing in 1860. And the reason I want to show you the second printing is because Charles Darwin added 3 words to the final sentence of the book in the second printing that were omitted from the first printing. And I'll read you that sentence, and maybe you can guess what those 3 words he added is. He's just finished laying out the idea of evolution through natural selection. And he says, there is grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed by the Creator into a few forms or into one. And that, whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. And that is the first time in the whole book, in the very last word, that he mentions the word evolved or evolution. Can everyone guess what the 3 words he added that weren't in the first printing? Not and are being. No. By the Creator.
Interesting. Keep on praying.
That's it. One of my favorite changes made to a book, right in the last line.
Very cool. Okay. Occasionally, I make an acquisition, I do a video, and it gets some serious interest from institutional collections. And they go, wait, how does a little store in Provo, Utah get that when we're the big museums? We deserve that. How did you beat us to it? Well, here is that item. It's in a protective case. What do these institutions like? Primary source, handwritten history. This covers 9 years. It's a type of ledger, journal, handwritten, primary source information covering the years 1795 till 1804. Why does this end in 1804? Because that's when the guy keeping this ledger is killed in a duel with Aaron Burr. Oh, that would be Alexander Hamilton. This is the law ledger of Alexander Hamilton. Now it's been digitized at Columbia, which used to be King's College, which is where he went. But the original law ledger of Alexander Hamilton is in Provo, Utah. Okay, so you've kind of seen, I've shown you some early American history items. We've done Darwin, Tolkien. Now we are going to turn some time over to you. And like we have, none of us have talked before, so we're just going to see where this goes. Name a person, place, event, and we're going to see how close we can get. But we should be able to show you something that ties to it with no more than 1 degree of separation.
The Mayflower.
Okay, the Mayflower. The coolest item I have tracked down to the Mayflower was the deed to the Mayflower. Is it still here? No. Somebody walked in with 1.25 million and now owns the deed to the Mayflower. Chump change. I do have a video where I talk about that and I show that. I mean, that's hard to beat. But which version of the Bible did they bring over on the Mayflower?
Yeah, okay.
It was known as the Breeches or Geneva version of the Bible. Even though the King James Bible was out, they did not want the King James Bible. This is the version they enjoyed. This happens to be one from 1599. This is the exact version brought to the Americas on the Mayflower. So you see how that works?
Yeah.
But the Mayflower deed, that is one of the top 3 all-time items that I don't have that really makes me sad. And people always say, well, why did you sell it? It's always a 2-word answer why I no longer have something. 8 kids.
Yeah.
You get college tuition times 3. At least I can go, okay, here's fall tuition, here's spring tuition. So I have to sell books, but yeah.
Did it go to an institution or no? A private?
Well, it went to a nice collection. But have you seen it? No, because it's, yeah.
That's too bad.
Okay, so you see how that works? Okay, don't be shy. And if you start to make boring requests, we'll show you what you wish you would have asked for. Because there are a ton of what you wish you would have asked for. There are some spectacular items. Don't be shy.
New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay. You passed it when you walked in. I have the original plans of Hobbiton. Where is Hobbiton located?
New Zealand.
New Zealand. We're talking the original sketches. We have a couple of them out front, like Bag End, and so we have original. It's filmed there. That's New Zealand. And then I do have in that vault, I have the first edition Maori Book of Mormon, 1889, which is New Zealand, so a couple of things. We've got it covered.
What's your earliest Hebrew Bible?
Earliest Hebrew Bible, we have one at least 400 years old. I'm going to do a quick.
It's nice when you can just pop to the next room to get your 400-year-old Hebrew Bible, isn't it? You know.
We have over 400 Bibles. Hebrew with a Latin parallel translation. This particular one, not that old, all things considered, but it is 1740. So it's approximately 300 years old. I just grabbed the first one, but there you go.
By Hebrew Bible, do you mean just the Old Testament?
Yes.
One of the fun things that I just noticed while Reid was showing you this is books from this period wouldn't necessarily have been kept in bookcases. Bookcases are a pretty modern invention. They'd have been stored in chests down like this. So what you'd have done is you'd have opened your chest and you'd have looked to the foredge of the book, so the opposite of the spine. And when you looked down at this one, you would have seen written on the spine all that you needed to know to pick it up. The best literal translation of the Hebrew.
Wow, that's amazing.
Having the titles on the spine of the books is a relatively modern phenomenon, because that only makes sense when you're shelving books like this. But in the early days, you see them on the foredge.
Okay, next.
Can I see something I know you have?
Hold on. Can you?
Be a bit more obscure and see if we can pick it up.
Leading.
Yeah, without naming the item, name the person, place, or event, and I'll see.
King James.
Okay, so I won't go over there. We have a first edition King James Bible, 1611. The most printed book in the history of the world is the Bible. The most printed version is the King James Bible. Approximately 5 billion copies are printed. I'm going to show you a copy that was printed a year after the first edition. It's in the vault, so it is special. It's 1612, but this is a King James Bible that belonged to King James. Bound by the Royal Bookbinder, John Bateman. This is his personal copy. Does that work?
Would you like that?
I mean, if Reid's offering it, I'll take it on the plane home with me.
Thomas Jefferson.
Okay. You don't make the rules. How about a handwritten letter, Thomas Jefferson, written to his grandson, whose name was Jefferson? So it's Jefferson to Jefferson, right there. And this is written, my dear Jefferson.
So he wrote my dude Jefferson.
That's it. Yeah, he's writing to his.
My dear, I thought you said my dude Jefferson. That's awesome. My dude.
So the Thomas Jefferson letter right there. Okay, do you want me to show you something you wish you would have asked for? What was a big news story this year? The passing away of somebody besides Ozzy Osbourne. No, okay, the Pope is correct. The Pope is correct. So anytime something happens, I always have people say, you have anything that ties to that person that's notable? And it's like, yeah, I got his cap, which is called a zucchetto, that belonged to Pope Pius, that he used in his first year as Pope back in 2013. And you say, how do we know that? This is a notarized thing from his personal secretary saying, yes, this was worn by the Pope. Dated 19th February 2014. Pretty cool, huh? Mm-hmm. Now I can neither confirm or deny that I've tried this on. But the Pope's zucchetto.
Should we show a book from a papal library while we're
talking Pope?
on the theme? This is one of my favorite things that I rummaged through earlier on today in the vault. Again, this is the box that houses it.
Do you want me to hold the clamshell?
Sure. But this is a papal binding. So this is a book that was bound for and belonged to Pope Pius
the Seventh.
The Seventh. So this is during the time of Napoleon. We know it's a papal binding because we have the cross keys of the Vatican there, and then we identify what pope it is based on the arms in the center of the binding. You can see it's repeated on the back. And this is a Roman Missals. This is a prayer book that would have been read from at Mass, which is why it's very helpfully printed in beautiful, large letters. But I'm a great collector of papal books and papal bindings wherever I can find them. And thankfully, quite a lot of them have found their way out of the Vatican over the years, which means that there's enough for us. book collectors to play with. Papal books were not automatically considered part of the Vatican's own collection, and actually until the early 20th century, Vatican book collecting only really became super formalized then under Pope Leo X, who before he became Pope was Vatican librarian. So he was a great librarian Pope. And what he did is all the other great libraries in Rome, either in great townhouses or that had been in families for generations, like the Barberini Library and the Chigi Library, he just bought them. So that made the Vatican the dominant library in Rome because he just bought everyone else's collections. That added about 100,000 books and manuscripts to their collection over about a 10-year period. So nowadays, things don't tend to get out, but back 200-300 years ago, things found their way out.
Are you guys just like serial garage sailors, or how do you pull it off?
We look everywhere all the time. I mean, Reid can attest to this. The best thing about book collecting is that anything could be anywhere. So sometimes you find amazing books in, wood-paneled libraries, and sometimes you find them in the most unexpected places. So you just have to keep looking and hope you get lucky.
Okay, group quiz time. I have a letter written by a young lady in 1891. Here's the background. It's Christmas. She's giving a gift to a friend of hers, and she's being a little bit mischievous because she's wrapped it many times in twine and paper, and it's going to take the person a while to open it. And this is what this 11-year-old says on Christmas 1891. Be patient, dear friend, till the very end. Unwrap and untwine, and in the fullness of time, I am sure you will find the treasure within. May it prove a sweet reward for thy toil and perseverance, as well as a little token of the tender love of thy playmate. Christmas 1891. 11 years old. She was born 1880. Three, two, one. Helen Keller. And look at that writing. That is better than 100% of young men. But there's something also interesting about this that Tom will tell us about.
So I noticed this when Reid showed it to me yesterday. You can see that the distribution of the pencil is very, very even. And that's because she was sort of hard pressing, almost stenciling the words. And it means when you turn it over and look in the light, you can actually see the impressions that are left on the page. This is a much deeper impression than, I'll just walk through so you can see at the back as well. This is a much deeper impression into the paper than you would find even from, a heavy sheet of metal type being pressed through in the printing press, just because of how forcefully she had to, press down in order to form her letters. So.
All right, back to you guys.
How about Shakespeare?
World War II, anything Churchill or Roosevelt?
Okay. You see that white set? That's everything written by Winston Churchill. 32 volumes, 3 million words.
And the reason Churchill had to write so much, because that basically saved him from bankruptcy. He was in debt to mainly his cigar and wine merchants for most of his adult life. And he had a great habit of writing his way out of tough scrapes with debt collectors.
Well, and he ties into, his genealogy ties into...
I know this book.
Yes. Why don't you...
I sold this to Reid. So I picked this book up in York. So in York last September. And it's called, the British have a great habit for titling books in an incredibly boring way. An account of the conduct of the Dowager Duchess of Marlborough from her first coming to court to the year 1710 in a letter from herself to my lord. And I mean, no one is rushing to Barnes & Noble to buy that when it first comes out, are they? So I said that to Reid. I said, look, I've got this book. It's called An Account of the Conduct of the Duchess of Marlborough from her first coming to court to the year 1710. Would you like to buy it? And he said, no. And then I said, well, do you know who the Duchess of Marlborough is? And the Duchess of Marlborough is Winston Churchill's great grandmother, going way back to the early 18th century, 200 years before he was alive. And this copy is quite interesting for that reason, because it's his copy from his library that then passed down to the library of his son, Randolph Churchill. So it's a Churchill family book.
How's that work for Churchill?
From the Churchill family library. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
So in 1345, Petrarch was in the cathedral library in Verona, and he found some letters. And they turned out to be a collection of letters from Cicero that had been, as far as I know, lost until that point. So that's my event. Petrarch finding Cicero's letters, 1345.
So you broke the 600-year rule by 100 years.
Sorry.
But
I'm thinking.
okay, we'll come back to that one.
Okay, I have an easier one.
Okay.
John Milton.
Okay. We have a couple of, nice copies of Paradise Lost. What interesting things about Milton?
Should we get out your folio?
Yeah.
So this is a copy of Shakespeare's plays that is known as the second folio. So the first folio was published in 1623, 7 years after Shakespeare's death. And for half of Shakespeare's plays is the first time that they are published. But it also marks the first appearance in print of a poem by John Milton. And this is Reid's copy of the second folio of Shakespeare, which followed years later in 1632. And you can see here a poem to the memory of W. Shakespeare. And it's signed J.M. for John Milton. And the fun thing about this is that one of the greatest discoveries in the book world of recent years was about 5 years ago, where someone discovered that a copy of the first folio that had been in an American library for over a century contained all these annotations. And an American academic wrote a blog post saying, oh, very just offhand, these annotations are by John Milton. And then people started writing saying, that's a big deal. You should tell people about this. Right. And they did. And so John Milton's annotated copy of Shakespeare was found and is now fully digitized online if you want to go and check it out. But yeah, one of the fun things that a lot of people don't know, because again, it's not signed John Milton, all these prefatory poems in the first folio are mainly just signed with initials. So you have J.M. here.
That corner.
I work with infectious diseases, so two examples would be John Snow, the father of epidemiology, or something about tuberculosis.
Okay. I'll tell you something about tuberculosis. So you have Helen Keller. Her teacher was Anne Sullivan. Anne Sullivan got tuberculosis and almost died. And the doctor who saved her, Helen Keller, inscribed a book to her saying, "Thank you for saving my dear teacher." And I have that book. But that's literally somebody who almost died from tuberculosis was Helen Keller's teacher, Anne Sullivan. And then she gave a book of her poetry to the doctor and inscribed it, "Thank you for saving my dear teacher."
not to be impertinent, but should you be wearing gloves when you handle these old books and the pages?
The short answer is no. Gloves are something, it's one of these counterintuitive things where it feels like you're being more protective when you're wearing gloves, but in practical terms, you're more likely to cause damage. If you look at a book like this is 400-year-old paper. It's really quite thin. If I was wearing gloves, I wouldn't really have the sensitivity in my fingers to be able to turn the pages safely. I might grab a few together, end up tearing them. Also, gloves, the other problem with gloves is that they feel cleaner, right? Because you don't have your bare hands. But actually, gloves pick up far more dirt. So while you're using it, you can pick up dirt from the table or from part of the book and transfer it to another part of a book. So there are some libraries in the world, not many, very old-fashioned ones that still insist on wearing gloves. And you come home from handling an old manuscript, and you can the gloves turn like nearly black from handling them. And all of that is you taking away with you things that used to be on the book. So the best practice for handling books is just clean, dry hands.
Believe me, we are both chastised on a daily basis on our post online, handling those books. And those who have followed us for a while immediately dogpile and say, "You're new here. Obviously, you don't know. That's not the proper method. Get out of here." So.
Columbus, Christopher?
Okay.
You're going to be stronger on all the American history than me.
When Christopher Columbus came to the Americas, I'm going to show you the version of the Bible he had. I don't have his Bible, but I have the version. When he came over, it was in Latin. It wasn't in Italian. It wasn't in any other language. This is what it looked like. And they always, they traveled with the Bible. It's made to look like it's handwritten, but it's actually printing press. But everything in color is hand illuminated or added. Yeah, that is okay. That's somebody's annotation, who had it. So that's 300-400-year-old annotation.
Did all educated people read Latin?
What was it? Yeah. That was the language.
Kind of everyone.
Yeah.
And how long did that last?
A while. I mean, it took a long time for a lot of these books. So, for the Bible was handwritten in English, and a very small copy is under the translation of Wycliffe. But it took a long time for the Bible to be printed in English, and it took over 30 years of the printing press for any book to be printed in English. So it was the dominant language of all religions.
And most people probably couldn't because they hadn't been schooled.
Yeah, but in the early days of the printing press, most people couldn't afford to buy books.
Yeah, so no loss.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Copernicus or Newton?
Okay, Copernicus or who?
Newton.
Okay. One of Newton's most famous works is Principia Mathematica. We have a copy of that. Not a first, but we do have a copy of that. And I have a pretty cool Copernicus item, but it may be too hard to find. But Newton...
There's also, it is right at the back, but there is, on that bookshelf there, a copy of Voltaire's commentary on Newton.
On Newton, yeah.
Let me put down the £1 million copy of Shakespeare and squeeze through, and I can show you it. So this is one of those lovely things that you can find in book collecting where you're finding one great mind contending with another. And this is an English edition, the first edition in English of Voltaire's The Elements of Sir Isaac Newton's Philosophy. So this is printed in London in 1738. You can see it's getting through.
Okay, next.
John Locke.
Do you have any John Locke?
Yeah, we do out front. We have his, we have his 2-volume philosophy book, John Locke. I'm just trying to think if there's anything in the back room. As we're going through, we'll see something else. Otherwise, we need to go out front. But we do have his 2-volume works on philosophy.
What if we broadened it to the sort of British Enlightenment more generally? Do we have, I don't know, any Adam Smith? We have actually out front. Do you want to get the Hume? Oh, that's in the cabinet out front. But you've got.
Yeah.
Have a look at it when you go out. So right at the front of the shop, as you're going out on the right-hand side, you have John Adams' copy of David Hume's History of England. So a great sort of Enlightenment meetings of minds in one volume, written by one, owned by another.
Well, and we have Wealth of Nations.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith.
The Enlightenment is well covered.
Joan of Arc, that too.
It's okay. I'm going to humor you.
600. Okay.
I'm going to humor you because there she is. She's watching us. That would be Joan of Arc right there. And stay right where you are. Here is her biography. And I'll let...
So this is a beautiful edition of Jean Michelet's biography of Joan of Arc. Does anyone want to guess the date of this book? This is the original binding.
Wow.
No wrong answers. Only joking. I mean, there is a date. So this is from 1888, and it's still in the original publisher's binding. And I really like this book because it was actually owned by a sort of book collecting hero of mine, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago, called Robin de Beaumont. His book plate is there. But he assembled the finest collection in the world of 19th century publishers' bindings. So this is 1888 in the publisher's deluxe binding, which is why, if I open it up, to show you, it's just absolutely beautiful. So this is replicating a kind of medieval binding style that would have been the height of luxury during the time of Joan of Arc. Sadly not a book that she would have been able to afford to commission herself, but certainly the sort of book that princes at the time, when they were commissioning their fine bindings, it would have been designed like this.
Okay.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So in today's dollars, how expensive was that book back then? When you say she couldn't afford it, like.
Oh, I mean, going back far too far to have, a meaningful comparison.
Because there were no printed books then. They would all been handwritten.
So if you were commissioning a book like this in the 12th, 13th century, you're talking about paying a team of scribes to spend a year writing a book by hand.
Wow.
And then jewelers and artists to design a book binding and, illuminate it. So, I mean, you're talking about the stuff that was only really open for courtly gifts. So the stuff of kings and princes.
Okay. I'm going to show you something you wish you would have asked for. The original shooting script of Star Wars, 1976, right there, with the original concept art that was not used by Macquarie, with the original title, The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, as taken from the Journal of the Whills. And if you've watched the movie and you have the original script, it was full 50% changed. They just ad-libbed. They made the dialogue more comic book. If you think about it, it was more comic book dialogue, New Hope. Example, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. They have their famous fight scene. Vader insults his former master teacher by saying, "Your powers are weak, old man. You should have never come back." But then it's almost like Obi-Wan Kenobi says, if you strike me down, I'll come back even more powerful than you can imagine. It's like, well, yeah, I'll come back. George Lucas wanted him to maintain his kind of sensei role. Don't get rattled by some young, And so what does the original script say? He does insult him. Your powers are weak, old man. You should have never come back. And then here, Obi-Wan Kenobi calmly responds, you only know half the Force, Darth. You perceive its full power as little as a spoon perceives the taste of food.
That's better.
Well, but that's more in line with what he wanted him to say, okay? Now, much like Lord of the Rings has Silmarillion, which is, the Bible, going back earlier. This is the Silmarillion of Lord of the Rings. That's the final draft number 4. This is draft number 2. With the title Adventures of the Starkiller. And this one, he decided, I'm going to tell you everything about what the Force is. By the time they get to there, stripped it out. I'm just going to randomly stop in here. Okay, here we go. So Luke settles down to talk to his nephews, and he's going to give them some background. And he goes, the boys settle down and listen attentively. Luke, in another time, long before the Empire and before the Republic had been formed, a holy man called the Skywalker became aware of a powerful energy field which he believed influenced the destiny of all living creatures, and it was called the Force of Others. Yes, and after much study, he was able to know the Force, and it communicated with him, and he came to see things in a new way. His aura and powers grew very strong. The Skywalker brought a new life to the people of his system, and he became one of the founders of the Republic Galactica. And then one of the kids said, the Force of Others talk to him? Luke, in a manner different from the way we talk. As you know, and this makes sense, what Obi-Wan Kenobi said to Darth, you only know half the Force? In a manner different from the way we talk. As you know, the Force of Others has 2 halves. Ashla, the good, and Bogan, the paraforce, or evil part. Fortunately, Skywalker came to know the good half and was able to resist the paraforce, but he realized that if he taught others the way of Ashla, some with less strength might come to know Bogan, the dark side, and bring unthinkable suffering to the universe. For this reason, the Skywalker entrusted the secret of the Force only to his 12 children. And they in turn passed the knowledge on to their children, who became known as the Jedi Bindu of the Ashla, servants of the Force. So Jedi means servant, servants of the Force. And then one of the kids said, why didn't the Force of Others help the Jedi put things right? Luke, because a terrible thing happened. During one of his lessons, a young Padawan Jedi, a boy named Anakin, no, this is the early. A young boy named Dark Lightner.
Foreshadowing.
Came to know the evil half of the Force and fell victim to the spell of the dreaded Bogan. He ran away from his instructor and taught the evil ways of the Bogan Force to a clan of Sith pirates, who then spread untold misery throughout the systems. They became the personal bodyguards of the Emperor. The Jedi were hunted down by these deadly Sith Knights. With every Jedi death, contact with the Ashla grows weaker, and the force of the Bogan grows more powerful. That's 2 pages of just background on that is 100% stripped from the later. And then you go back even earlier, and one of the all-time great characters got stripped out. There was a king in the early one, and he's the first one to use the word the Force. And his name was King Chaos. K-A-Y-O-S, King Chaos. That one of the great characters, and gone. Oh, and the Jedi weren't called the Jedi early on. They were called the... I have the first draft, the second draft, the third draft, and the fourth draft. I have everything. They were called, let me see. What's the name of the trash compactor monster? Because that was the name of the Jedis. And he goes, I'm not going to lose that name. And so he recycled that to use as the trash compactor monster. But that, just a sec, I've got it right here. Yeah, the Dianoga. And now here's the first draft, all the way back 1974. Star Wars. Oh, and you know the whole thing? In a galaxy far, far away. It talks about a civil war and all that type of stuff. Here it is. Here's how the original scroll roll-up was supposed to be. Until the recent Great Rebellion, the Dai-Nogas were the most feared warriors in the universe. For 100,000 years, generation of Dai perfected their art as the personal bodyguards of the king. They were the chief architects of the Invincible's Royal Space Force, which expanded the king's power across the galaxy from the celestial equator to the farthest stars. Now, these legendary warriors are all but extinct. One by one, they've been hunted down and destroyed as enemies of the new galactic kingdom by a ferocious and sinister rival warrior sect called the Legions of Latau. So, I mean, if you're a Star Wars buff, I mean, geek, this is just insane early information that when you get on a forum or whatever, you can just blow people like, oh, really? This is what it says? Pooh. And you can find the fourth draft online. You won't see the first or the second. Those are not anywhere, and they're not going to be. Okay, back to you guys.
Thomas Cromwell.
Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know, okay.
I don't know if I can tie it to anything here, but I did have the privilege. Do you know the famous Holbein portrait of Thomas Cromwell? So Hans Holbein was the portrait artist, the Tudor court. Thomas Cromwell, Henry VIII's right-hand man. And there's this famous portrait of him sat robed in black on a green tablecloth, and sat on the table is a book binding. And you can see jeweled garnet sparkling on top of it. And two friends of mine who are historians at Hever Castle, which is Anne Boleyn's childhood home, were at Cambridge University 2 years ago. And they were looking at a prayer book in their collection. And they said, this looks terribly familiar. And they couldn't place it. And they got back to Hever Castle and looked on their wall at the reproduction of the Thomas Cromwell portrait and saw, that's it. And it was lost for, the best part of 500 years. And they rediscovered Thomas Cromwell's prayer book that was hiding in plain sight in one of the most famous portraits in the world. The portrait is in the Frick collection in New York. And the prayer book is going there later this year to be exhibited alongside the portrait for the very first time.
Well, and for those who don't know, who is Thomas Cromwell? He is the minister of Henry VIII.
Yes, he was the sort of gopher who administered the Reformation for Henry.
Okay. If you go to our case out front, we have a book from Henry VIII's personal library, which is our book that's a 1 degree of separation. I mean, literally the guy he works for, his copy of the book is out there on the right-hand side. And I can assure you, there are very few places, I don't know of any other place in America that has a book from Henry VIII's personal library.
I feel like this is an impossible question, but terrible fires burning down your place. You can save one thing. What are you saving?
people always say one thing, and I say, you do know I can carry that many things, right? Actually, I was showing Tom yesterday, it would be books that have been passed down to my own family. And a lot of people may have a family Bible that goes back to the 1800s. I have a Moon family Bible that goes back to the 1600s that's in that vault. So that would be it.
There's one thing that I've seen in this bookshop. This is a bit of a riddle. Does anyone know the only book that gets in better condition when you set it on fire?
Maybe like a clay tablet of some kind.
Exactly. Have you got one in? I saw one in there yesterday.
Oh, there's a little cuneiform tablet.
So if the shop's burning down, you just leave this in here.
Yeah, it's an invoice for delivering 26 talents of malt barley, which is like 2 tons of beer making supplies, by a guy named Omar. That's what most of these are accounting, and yeah.
What era? Like what age?
It was 4,000 years ago. I mean, it's Sumerian, so.
Go
on. Okay, so another event. This time definitely within the time limit.
All right.
So in the 1870s, I want to say, but definitely in the 19th century, Heinrich Schliemann undertook the first archaeological excavations of Troy. Yeah, so that's the event.
Okay. I actually have, so there was a pretty well-known archaeologist, and the heyday for archaeologists, like on Indiana Jones, or like 1920s, 1930s, they had access to everything. And what this one archaeologist brought back, I now own from a dig.
It's fun for me when Reid goes out because I have no idea what he's bringing back either. Just going to be behind you just to grab something.
This is, and it's in his display case. What is it? It's Babylonian cylinders. Babylonian cylinders, just think of your thumb like a rock, and then it's carved in, and then you roll it on a piece of clay and it gives you a message. And so it's literally reversed. And these have been translated. We know what they're talking about, and I have 5 of them, and they're talking about Mesopotamian deities between about 3,800 to 4,400 years ago. And here they are. I'll let you start since you asked right there. And the archaeologist, it tells right here, yeah, it's out of his Wilfrid something collection. But
what was the name of the archaeologist?
Well, if you can decipher it, Wilfrid from Wilfrid Meredith's collection. It's in pencil right there.
Wow.
If I go back to my original invoice from like 10 years ago, it will tell. But and these images are made from these.
Oh, cool.
That's a pretty ingenious high-tech method of transferring information because it's very difficult to forge that.
Right.
You would literally have to redo it.
Where were they found?
Over Iraq.
Okay.
Someone earlier asked, did you ask about epidemiology and tuberculosis? So I didn't know the story behind this until about 3 hours ago when Reid told it to me. But this just has struck me the whole trip as one of the most beautiful items in the back room. This is a metal book binding. These are really quite uncommon. You can see it's dated here. Arts Union of London, January 1896. Come up at the end and see it up close if you want to. But during this period, the arts and crafts movements, most of the most beautiful artistic fine book bindings were done by young women in art schools. And this is one of them. This binding was designed by a bookbinder called Lillian Simpson. And she was 26 when this binding was done. And the tragedy behind it is this is one of her final book bindings, because she died at the age of 27
Because
the following year.
she won this contest, which qualified her for a kind of scholarship to go study in Italy. She goes to Italy and within weeks gets tuberculosis and dies. And so this is really the last known work of her, dying in this tuberculosis.
So you've got a lot of rich history, some awesome stories. What's the creepiest thing that you have you usually wouldn't admit to?
Oh, I admit.
We just went dark, right? We've gone from Bibles to.
We've gone a full 180.
This is the contents of Charles Manson's prison cell. How's that? What did he have? Oh, he had a Bible. But that was given to him by one of his followers who kind of said, I'm getting out of Dodge. She went to Burlington, Vermont, sent this to him. I have the original envelope. But what does he put in there? Egyptian Book of the Dead stuff. He used it to keep that. I won't show that. Manson writing his autobiography, Notes for Book. This is some crazy Looney Tunes stuff right here. Who are some of his followers? Squeaky Fromm. Under his spell, came that close to assassinating President Ford. I mean, nobody's expecting this 5'1" little redhead. She walked up, pulled out a gun, pulled the trigger, and it misfired. And then they tackled her. You talk about Secret Service agents that all got fired. And then after that, she writes him this letter. And you cannot unread that letter. Nice handwriting, but a bit dark. No, very dark, because she was still very much in love with him, wanted to do whatever he wanted, and she was pretty much saying, hey, I can close, but, it didn't happen. But then she says, you know what? Here's my fantasy, and told him what she wanted him to do to her in there. So, like I said, this is it gets dark and keeps getting darker.
Wait, creepy, a little scandalous. I like it.
I'm just looking at the nice angels on this book binding.
Are you ready?
How do you come by stuff like that? I mean,
it finds me. Would you like me to do Mother Teresa now?
Yeah. Yes. How about Albert Einstein?
We can do both. Okay, here's Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa, the world doesn't know Mother Teresa but pre-1975, really. But it is October 1975, she speaks at the United Nations for the first time. That's her introduction to the world. And she had this grand vision of a place called the United Nations. Oh my gosh, this is the greatest place ever. She goes there, and she is highly disappointed. She goes, there's like 2 hours of speeches and 22 hours of people getting drunk and all the parties, and it was offensive to her. How do I know this? Because after she went, she wrote a letter, which I have. The letter itself tells a lot about her because it's written on lined notebook paper, which is the cheapest paper possible. Not stationery, and it's stamped Mother Teresa Missionaries of Charity. It's written with a very identifiable Bic pen, Bic ballpoint. What does now she's writing it to the man from Missionaries of Charity who arranged for her to speak at the United Nations. And he wrote her first saying, "Wow, that was great, you spoke. Tell me your thoughts." This is what she thought. She said, "Dear Mr. G.G. Wagner, many thanks for your kind letter of 11/11/75. I'm glad you were happy that all went well at the United Nations. However, I felt like a fish out of water in that crowd of businessmen and world leaders, and I never feel like that with crowds much greater but closer of our kind. The lepers, the dying, the unwanted, the helpless, the unloved, the lonely. Thank you for inviting me, for I now have a better understanding of the rich, who day after day have to accept the role of entertaining and being entertained. Their gatherings need the presence of Jesus very much. Happy and holy Christmas and God's blessings on you." Christmas 19. Happy and holy Christmas and God's blessing on you, 1976, Mother Teresa. And if you look over to the wall, you will see Mother Teresa, and you'll see a couple snapshots of that handwritten letter right there. Now, I also have Mother Teresa's last letter. And you go, what do you mean last letter? And I said, well, believe me, I've looked online, and first of all, when did she die? Most people don't remember when she died because somebody else, more paparazzi famous, died a couple of days earlier, and that was nonstop news for that person. Princess Diana died, was killed in the car accident the last part of August 1997. She dies the first part of September. Page 8, Mother Teresa, Nobel Peace Prize winner, dies in Calcutta, India, age 88. That was it. Gone, nobody knew. She wrote a letter 10 days before that to a young man named Richard in Buffalo, New York. Richard had sent her a letter and sent a $10 check, said, "Here, feed the poor, but I want your autograph." Wow. So it wasn't this altruistic, "Oh, here, feed the poor." He was buying an autograph. Mother Teresa felt, I should go ahead and respond to this. And she couldn't write, so she types this out on a typewriter, and you can tell it's a manual. And she's just, she goes, "Dear Richard, thank you for your letter. However, more important than autographs is what we do for Jesus and through him for others. Look around you and see there are so many in this world who are lonely, unwanted, and have no one to call their own." And this is where she kind of chides him a little bit. It's easy to feed people far away. It's easier to give a cup of rice to relieve hunger than it is to relieve the pain of and loneliness of someone who's unloved. This is where our love for each other must start. God bless you, Mother Teresa. And she signed it, M. Teresa. It was all typed out. Richard never learned his lesson because I bought that letter on eBay from him. When he put a reserve of like $500, and he goes, "Whoa, I made $500 off Mother Teresa." So I have been mocking Richard for the past 20 years.
And someone said Einstein.
Okay. Let me just grab this to the magic binder. So many good things in here. Oh my goodness. Oh. Okay, I'm going to have to go to plan B, which is right here. When Einstein does the theory of relativity, it's first published in a physics magazine in Germany, 1906. This is that magazine. So this is the first time that Einstein publishes his theory of relativity, and it's only 3 pages, and you will not see anywhere on here E equals mc squared, because that's the greatly reduced formula. That's the full formula right there. Look at that. You reduce that down, and it's E equals mc squared. But this is him writing out the theory of relativity.
I don't know how you write an equation like that.
Well, and people still are like, yeah, Einstein, you got that right, you know.
Just kind of moving off that, do you have anything Manhattan Project-y or maybe formerly classified that's no longer classified?
I don't know. What about secret documents from the Manhattan Project? I
knew that was coming.
I have about 500.
Wow.
Somebody didn't turn them back in. It was the professor at Princeton did not turn in his hard water experiment, or heavy water experiment. And we just passed the anniversary, 80 years since the first atomic bomb. Yeah, we'll do that one. Here is a memo to the men and women of the Manhattan Project. Today, the whole world knows the secret which you have helped keep for many months. I'm pleased to be able to add that the warlords of Japan know its effects better than even we ourselves. And it goes on, but that Manhattan Project, and then Oppenheimer letter, Santa Fe P.O. box, with an actual instrument used to make the first atom bomb.
What is that?
Well, it's a little measuring thing, you know. They needed it down to milliliters or millimeters. Oppenheimer. We got Oppenheimer. We got Manhattan Project.
So exactly what I asked for.
Yeah.
Jane Austen?
Okay. Talk a little Jane Austen.
Should I take that? Sorry, I'm laden with goodies. If Reid can get it out, and maybe I'll slip this back on here.
You do the first, I'll do the last.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
So there aren't many places in the world where someone can say, show me some Jane Austen, and you can just go and get first editions of every single Jane Austen novel. But thankfully we're here and we can do that. So this is the first edition of Jane Austen's first published novel. This is Sense and Sensibility, published in 1911. 1811 even, yeah. The 1911 one is much cheaper. Let me show you the title page. The thing with Jane Austen's novels that you'll see is they're all published in multiple volumes. You can see Sense and Sensibility is published here in 3 volumes. Wow. And that's because most of Jane Austen's readers didn't buy her books. They borrowed them. They borrowed them from public lending libraries where you would pay a subscription. It was basically Netflix of Regency London. And then you would borrow a copy of the book. Well, why did that mean they published it in 3 volumes? Well, they could buy 1 copy of the book from the publisher and rent it out to 3 different people at once, which would have been a bit frustrating. So you got a third of the way through the book and you had to go back to your lending library to get the rest of it. The other thing that we see in the first editions of Jane Austen's novels is, though you see her name on the spine here, these bindings are later. You don't find her name anywhere inside the book itself. If you go to the title page, it just says, Sense and Sensibility, a novel in 3 volumes by a lady. And that's because during this period, writing novels is probably the modern equivalent of going on a reality show or writing a gossip column for a newspaper. They were considered low culture. And so people didn't attach their names to them. They weren't high status pursuits. If you were a poet, you'd put your name to your poems. If you were writing religious commentaries, you'd put your name to those. But if you were writing fiction, God forbid, you wouldn't put your name to that. And so in all of Jane Austen's novels, it doesn't have her name. In the first book, it says by a lady. In the second book, Pride and Prejudice, it says by the author of Sense and Sensibility. And that goes on all the way through until her final published book.
Well, so Pride and Prejudice, 1813, then Mansfield Park, 1814, then 1816 is Emma. And by the time Emma is printed, 1816, Pride and Prejudice is blown up, so it just says by the author of Pride and Prejudice. 1817, Jane Austen dies. 1818, Northanger Abbey and Persuasion are published. Now who do you think the author is? The brother kept the same format, by the author of Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, etc. So the question is, when does the world find out that Jane Austen is the author of those books? Well, in those books, turn the title page over, and the brother tells, the first paragraph, he tells that his sister wrote that book. How does a brother do his sister justice in saying that? He did so by saying the following. The following pages are the production of a pen, which has already contributed in no small degree to the entertainment of the public. And when the public, which has not been insensible to the merits of Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park and Emma, shall be informed that the hand which guided that pen is now moldering in the grave. Perhaps a brief account of Jane Austen will be read with a kindlier sentiment than simple curiosity. That's how the brother did it. I think he did a good job.
Yeah.